Hello, my name's Patrick Ring and I'm the Programme Leader for the BA Finance, Investment and Risk here at Glasgow Caledonian University. GCU is a top-ranked modern university in Scotland, and a key reason for our success is our focus on providing applied business-related courses that meet the needs of industry. The BA Finance, Investment and Risk is one such course. The financial services sector is a global industry, and the BA Finance, Investment and Risk provides our graduates with the opportunity to develop successful careers in the financial services sector at home here in Scotland and in the UK, as well as internationally. We have a number of graduates working in financial centres such as Dubai, Germany, the United States and the Far East. Here in Scotland, the financial services industry makes up around 10% of economic output. That's over 160,000 jobs. The programme offers graduates the opportunity to develop the skills and attributes that financial services employers are looking for. So this programme will enable you to gain expertise in key areas such as corporate finance investment, risk management, financial technology, banking, sustainable finance, pensions and personal finance. And after graduation, you may embark on a career that may lead you to managing multi-million-pound investment funds, or providing financial advice to individuals and businesses. You may end up leading teams to develop new products and processes in retail and investment banks, or be working for investment management firms or consultancies, becoming the relied upon technical expert in areas such as cyber risk, regulatory compliance, behavioural finance, or sustainable investments. These are just some of the wide array of opportunities that are available in the financial services sector and that our programme will prepare you for. I'm now in the university's Bloomberg lab, the largest of its kind in Scotland, with 20 Bloomberg terminals. The Bloomberg terminals provide access to real-time financial data, news and analytics. This includes stock prices, fixed income securities, currencies, commodities and derivative markets, just the kind of data you can see behind me here. Students can track global markets with detailed and up-to-date information on thousands of financial instruments. The terminals also offer a suite of tools for portfolio management, risk analysis, trading and financial modelling. This facility reflects the industry-focused nature of the BA Finance, Investment and Risk programme, which aims to provide graduates with the skills and attributes employers in the financial services sector are looking for. For example, a number of the modules in the programme integrate work in this Bloomberg lab into their day-to-day teaching and assessment. This provides students with the opportunity to complete and obtain the industry-recognised Bloomberg Markets Concept Certificate. This certificate enables students to develop valuable skills in financial analysis and market research, as well as the use of the Bloomberg terminals, and this is a highly sought-after skill in the finance industry. Of course, over your degree, you'll also have the chance to listen to guest lectures from industry speakers on a range of topics. There are also networking opportunities, as we have a range of employers who regularly contact us about internships, placements and job opportunities. And our student-led Risk and Finance Society run a number of seminars and industry-related events. In addition, we have a close association with industry professional bodies such as the Chartered Insurance Institute and the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investment, all of which helps ensure that the programme remains relevant and up to date. We're now in one of the lecture theatres in the Annie Lennox building. Lectures form an important basis for your learning, and while there's no one here at the moment, I thought that instead I'd provide you with a short recording which will give you a flavour of what you might expect in a lecture. So sit back and buckle up for the next 10 minutes as I explain to you why I think financial services are so important, but also how they can create so many issues for individuals.
Welcome to this short lecture on understanding financial services. In this recording, I want to cover the difficulties individuals have in managing their finances, the problems that can cause, the reasons why those difficulties can arise, and how it explains some of the problems that we see in the financial press and in the news regarding financial services, and finally what kind of contribution the regulation of financial services can make in trying to deal with those issues. First of all, let's look at some of the statistics on this slide. It indicates that 88% of Britons don't feel confident in their financial literacy. In other words, in terms of their ability to understand and manage their finances. As a result of that, 1/3 indicate that their mental health has suffered. You'll see some of the more detailed statistics there relating to people aged 18 to 24, for example, and that 1 in 3 people admit mental health has been affected from dealing with their finances. And this is shown in research more generally, which indicates there's a real connection between financial well-being and mental and physical health well-being. So, the issue of understanding financial services and being able to manage your financial services is more than just the financial costs here. It's really a fundamental element of people's well-being in their life as a whole, and that's why, if you like, understanding financial services is so important, or at least it's one of the key reasons why it's so important for individuals. Looking at these results from a survey undertaken by Free Trade of 2,000 people on how financial literate they are, when they were asked a range of questions relating to savings, investment and ISAs, only 52% of people passed the questions they were asked and 48% failed. So you can see there's a bit of a challenge here in terms of people's financial awareness and understanding, and that starts straight from school, where there's evidence to suggest that there's not much goes on at school. Even though it's in the curriculum, there's not much direct teaching in terms of financial services, and that goes straight on through adult life as well, in terms of the sources of reliable information and training that might be available to individuals. So, individuals have a real issue with financial services, or at least a significant percentage of the population do. And so the question is, why is that the case? I mean, we understand now that it's important, but why is it? Is there something about the nature of financial services that make them different, more complicated, more complex, that makes it more difficult for people to get a grip with? So let's look at some of those issues. So the question I want to ask is, what is the explanation for this relatively low level of financial literacy? Is there something about the nature of financial services that make it different or more difficult to understand or deal with compared to other goods and services? Well, first of all, financial products tend to be intangible. You can't touch them, you can't taste them. It's not like buying a pair of jeans where you can try them on, or buying a car where you can take it out and test drive it. You can't test drive a pension. You can't test drive an ISA. So that makes it difficult to compare products, and also to, if you like, test out or understand whether they're, for example, value for money. Also, with financial services, they're technically sophisticated. There's a lot of rate of change in the different financial products that are available, the different ways they're delivered, the greater use of technology. And while there is technological change in many other areas of life, the rate of change in financial services is picking up pace all of the time. And alongside this intangibility of the products, it makes it more difficult to keep up with that change as well. In addition, most financial products, if they're investments, are long term. Okay, so if you're saving for retirement or saving for something in the future, in terms of the rate of return that you might expect, you can't predict that. So the value of what you're putting your money into is not always clear at the point of purchase. And inevitably with investments, you're hoping that the value will rise over time. So unlike something like a car or clothes where their value will tend to decrease over time, for a financial services product, its value will often rise over time. So that makes it even more important to use it as an individual. You may be relying on it for, to pay for your fees at university or your living expenses. You may be relying on it as a deposit for your first home, or to pay for your car, or indeed you're saving even longer term for your retirement. So your investment, literally your psychological as well as your financial investment, is high in this, and that makes it really important. And therefore there's a real relationship of trust between you and the person or institution for whom you're giving your money to, because they may well have it for a significant length of time. So are they going to be there in 10 or 15 years time when you need your money and you've kind of invested in it? So there's a relationship of trust, what's often called a fiduciary duty there, and that's why often people discuss the fact that trust in financial services institutions and financial advisors and so on is really important. And the other thing to note, because it's very long term and because its value isn't always clear at the point of purchase, it can be a long time before you're aware of any fault or issue with the product itself. Okay, and by that time it may be more difficult to try and rectify what the problem is. If you've been saving for retirement and you only realise shortly before retirement that the product's unsuitable, then there's not really a lot you can do about it in practical terms at that particular point in time. You may want to sue your advisor, but if you were advised in this 10 or 15 years ago, then you may have lost touch with the original advisor by then. So there are a number of issues here that make financial services, that many people argue, different from other products, and explain some of the issues I talked about earlier in terms of financial literacy. Also bear in mind that the decisions you make about financial services products are fundamental to your well-being. Okay, for investments there are no guarantees or warranties, and as I've said before, if you're relying on it for your pension at retirement, if you're relying on it to pay for your house or a car, this is related to your well-being. And of course, given the complexity, often you're relying on the advice of others, which is difficult to verify. Okay, and therefore there's an element of trust here, and it's relatively easy to mislead someone if they don't understand products. And remind yourself again of the statistics I gave you at the start there in relation to financial literacy. So it's important that we're able to trust the financial services institutions and the individuals working for them who we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So if we're going to put all this into a more academic or conceptual frame, then we'd talk about market failures. The kinds of things that I mentioned in the previous slides are examples of the market failing to provide the best outcome for consumers. And the way to think about that in terms of concepts that we can use, one is asymmetric information. So the explanation here is that a lot of these problems may arise due to the imbalance of information or knowledge between the parties to a contract, between the financial services provider and us as consumers. And that's where the financial literacy issue becomes so important. That imbalance can relate to the products in terms of understanding their technical nature, but it can also relate to the financial standing of the seller. For example, if we're investing our money in a bank, then how do we know that the bank is going to be there in 20 years' time? Are we able to adequately assess their accounts to know that they're financially sound and that therefore it's a good place to put our money? Most people wouldn't be able to do that. So there's an asymmetry of information between what the bank knows about its financial position and what we know. And this may be used, it's argued by some, to exploit the consumer, but at least it makes it more difficult for the consumer to make decisions when there's this imbalance of information between what the consumer has or understands and what the provider has. The second way of conceptualizing this is to say that part of the explanation for the issues I've discussed is about product issues. Okay, so it's about the nature of the product, its complexity, the lack of transparency, the technical wording that's used. Do we really, is it really clear to us, in 10 pages of documentation about a pension, what it actually does and how it actually operates? It's not the same as the washing instructions on a pair of jeans, for example. So our inability to assess the quality of our product at the point of purchase, is a function of product issues. And the argument again is that many consumers are ill-equipped to assess those product issues because of the kind of financial literacy issues that I've mentioned already. And that brings me to the last point I want to make, which concerns the regulation of financial services. Now, often when there's a financial crisis or the collapse of a financial institution, there's always a call for more or additional regulation. And as I say, there's a lot of regulation in financial services. But the point I want to make in this particular lecture is that regulation can help address some of the market failures I've mentioned in the previous slides and help promote the financial welfare and in turn therefore the health and mental well-being of individuals. So how does it do that? Well, if we look at this quote from Rawlings and his colleagues from a book that they produced in 2014, it argues that there are two kinds of regulation that can help address market failures and promote welfare. Those are ex ante provisions and ex post measures. So what does that mean in practice? Well, really what we're talking about is like ex ante, so like ante-meridian, before midday. Okay, so we're talking about ex ante provisions, those happening before the problem arises. Those regulations are in place to try and prevent the problem from arising in the first place. Okay, so in terms of problems with asymmetric information, that might be a regulation requiring providers to give you information about a product in a simple and straightforward way before you enter into the contract. So that helps try and bridge some of the gap between what the provider knows and what you know. It tries to increase the individual's knowledge in relation to that. Another ex ante provision might be that providers, let's say a bank, has to have a certain level of capital or a certain level of finance so that it's financially sound, so that problems don't arise. So these are the kind of ex ante provisions, regulations that try and prevent harm before it arises. Ex post measures, post meridian, after midday. So these are measures that are concerned with dealing with position after a problem has arisen. So obviously regulation can't prevent any harm from happening, but if it does, and it's as a result of wrongdoing or bad practice from a particular provider, then the kind of ex post measures might be penalties against the provider, so fines for example, compensation schemes and so on. So trying to put the consumer in the place that they would have been had the problem not arisen or had the harm not arisen. So these are two ways in which regulation can help the market work more effectively and overcome some of these market failures that I mentioned in the previous slide. So at the end of a lecture, even a small lecture like this, I'd usually ask students if they have any questions. So we use virtual learning environments, so there might be a discussion board or a Padlet board there. Often I would ask students to do some reading after a lecture, which we would then cover in a seminar, perhaps reading that article by Rawlings and all from the quote that I mentioned earlier. So I might ask them to read the whole article and then come to the seminar to discuss that. And obviously if they had any questions, they could cover those in seminars. So I hope that's helped give you an idea of how at least the presentation of a lecture might feel and sound like. And yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you for listening. I hope you found that short recording interesting. But please note, lectures are only the starting point for your learning. University is about developing you as an individual, as a self-directed and self-motivated learner, and as someone with the interpersonal skills needed to exploit your academic learning. So in addition, through tutorials, seminars, group work and presentations, solving problems and undertaking practical exercises, we'll help you to develop the personal and practical skills that will distinguish you from other graduates. So why not think about joining others on the BA Finance, Investment and Risk programme? We'd love to see you here on campus at GCU. And if you have any questions meantime, please don't hesitate to get in touch.